night, good evening, good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to the Ultimate Hockey Show. A little bit earlier today because I have an event that I need to attend tonight. So thanks, Red, first off, for accommodating the extra half an hour. My name is Michael Gill. I'm joined by Red Petty. Good afternoon, good evening, good late afternoon, whatever you want to call 4:30 Central Time to you, Red. How are you?
Very good, Michael. How about you?
I'm okay. I'm okay. Playoffs are winding down.
Yeah.
Got an event tonight. I should be done by the weekend, minus a few events, and it's slowly but surely coming to an end. Um, but that means one thing: the Stanley Cup playoffs are about to start. Actually, they are, believe it or not, beginning in a month from Wednesday. On April the 19th is when they're set to start. And the local team looking pretty good heading into the Stanley Cup playoffs. Your thoughts, Rhett, on what the Jets have been able to do? Our last show, just for full disclosure, was on the trade deadline. So I think they only have one, maybe two losses in that time frame.
Right. The
I
trade
know,
deadline show was on Friday, March the 7th, and that was before the New Jersey game, right? Because we
yeah.
were on the
So that
air till
I know they beat New Jersey. Um, we'll go through it.
sure.
The fact of the matter is they've won three straight games, including yesterday's comeback from 2-0 down against the Seattle Kraken in overtime. Just a thought on what you've seen from the Jets since we last had our show before we jump into a magnitude of topics that I kind of want to address.
It's been it's been pretty good. Like well, to address your issue, that's right, because we were sort of figuring out, okay, because we had a show on a Friday, we normally have a show on Monday. How long would it be? A week and a half, roughly, between then and our next show after the trade deadline. And so, yes, I believe one, two, three, four, 5 games have occurred since the show. There was one game that night and four others, and the Jets were 4-1 over
Yeah,
those 5 games. The only game they lost was to Carolina 4-2. But
and
yeah,
you could make the argument that they didn't deserve to lose that one, but got started on the wrong foot and were behind the eight ball before
yeah,
that game really even started.
yeah, yeah. That was a strange one, but that's okay. You're not going to win every game, right? But they're they're 4-1 in their last one, 5-1 in their last six. If you want to look at their last six, even the one before New Jersey against Philadelphia, and they've played. You know what? That it's such a funny thing because you can't. The Jets are kind of, I don't know. I can maybe we'll throw that out there and then see what you think. But like you could say, like for example, I'll just use these examples. You could say Edmonton rolls according to Draisaitl and McDavid.
Hmm.
Colorado rolls according to McKinnon and Makar. Um, Select your team, but in terms of how they roll. But the Jets, it's an interesting thing. They don't give teams a lot of chances for good scoring opportunities between Hellebuck or even Comrie playing in net.
Hmm.
Not many rebounds, nothing juicy. They swallow up stuff. They're in the right place. Yeah, they have trouble once in a while killing off a penalty. Okay, fine. It happens. Like
But
they're not in the
but even with the penalty kill has been much improved the last because
Yeah, it's been okay. It hasn't been great. It's just been okay. They let in one. It's kind of whatever. It's not like the top. They're not in the top 10. They're in the 11 to I think in the 11 to 20 crowd in the league. So in the
yep.
middle third. But whatever. I think they're more like between 15 and 20, kind of in that. I think they were 17 the last time I looked, or 16, something like that. But anyway, neither here nor there. But the Jets, they win in so many different ways. It's not like, well, if Shifley and Connor don't score, they're in big trouble. Well, then they find it's funny. Then they find other ways to score, and on this 5 out of 6 games that they've won, there's been a few games there where Scheifele and Connor weren't significant in the wins at all. They were other lines, other guys, and some of them were low scoring, some of them were higher scoring, but they don't give other teams a lot of goals. Like Carolina scoring 4 goals against them. That's the most goals. Like I'm just looking here. That's the most goals that the Jets have allowed prior to that since the beginning of February when they won at Washington 5-4, which was that shootout game, running it up right to the end, and then they held off the Caps and won the game 5-4. So they allowed 4 goals there. And then how many games is that in between? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 games in between. And then they let another 4 goals in. Like they don't let in a lot of goals. Like you're going to have to score 3+ goals to beat the Jets, or like you're going to have to keep the Jets under 2 goals because they don't let you get a lot of chances. You don't get a lot of chances. And if Hellebuck's really hot, even getting the chances, you won't score the 3 goals or 2 goals and then you better shut the Jets down completely on the power play and on 5-on-5 in order to win a game. And so, yeah, they I don't know what their identity is. Maybe that's what I'm saying is I don't know. Is it great team D? Is it Hellebuck and a whole bunch of other guys? Is it balanced scoring? Is it everybody buys in and plays the system and the next man up? And even if one guy goes down, another guy falls in. I don't know what it is, but it's an interesting formula. And I keep waiting for this thing to have a crack in it or to break down. And it hasn't. And maybe I'm just being pessimistic. Maybe I'm trying to see the glass half full as opposed to half empty, or half empty as opposed to half full. I don't know. You know what'll be interesting is I just want to see that first round. If you look at the standings now, there's no way that, and I'm saying it right now, with 14 games left for the Jets and 16 left for Dallas, there's no way that the Stars or the Avalanche, for that matter, can catch them in 14 games because they'd have to make up 11 points, which is like 5.5 wins. So that means if the Jets go 500, if the Jets go 7-7 in their next 14 games, that's 14 points, which means Dallas would have to get 11 points, 25 points to get on them, which means 25 points. They'd have to go 12. They got 12, 3-1 over their next 16 games in order to tie the Jets. If the Jets go 5-7, it's not going to happen. The Jets aren't going to go 7-7, and Dallas is not going to go 12, 3-1. So there's no chance. So the Jets get first place. So I'm interested in seeing what do they do in that first round against you. Select your team, Vancouver, Calgary, whoever you want. But
St. Louis or Utah.
I don't think St. Louis or Utah's in that mix. Maybe somebody gets hot. Who knows? Somebody could win 10 in a row, I suppose, depending upon their schedule. But
the interesting part is about what you just said, Rick, is I think if you're fighting for a playoff spot, it's really been your inability to go on a long winning streak. So 4-4-2 is about the average for teams in that wild card spot last I looked. 5-5, 4-4-2, 5-4-1, something like that.
Yeah.
You peel a lot of those runs together, there's nothing sustainable, but I'll tell you that one of those teams will pull away, and I think it'd be whoever's in position in Game 80, Game 81, Game 82. You have to win one game, and that's going to be that. I still think it's going to be the Calgary Flames that get in. But again, that's just me. Just by virtue of games remaining, they have 2 more left over anybody in that race. The other thing is the Canucks have 2 games with the Jets, one in Vancouver, one in Winnipeg, the one in Vancouver tomorrow night. I just don't know. I'll be honest. I don't think it matters who the Jets play. I expect the Jets to win that series. However, the pessimistic side of me said, while the playoffs haven't exactly been easy in the last couple times through see Vegas and see Colorado, but to me, Rhett, there's just something very different about this team this year that it seems all the hard times with the Torb in particular that that the core of this team have had to go through,
Yeah,
something seems to be resonating with them. And I think you'd agree with me here that last night is a particular example, falling behind 2-0 in Seattle, getting that goal before the end of the first period. I don't know if the Jets win that game last year or the year before, um, if we're being realistic. Um, but
good point.
they've they've somehow grown up, and I think there's something to going through hardships that will tell this group this is how you have to go. I expect the Jets to make it at least to the second round, and then we'll see what happens there. Um, but I could be wrong, and I could be like you and say, let's just take it one game at a time. But to me, just isn't even the Jets of last year. It isn't even the Jets of 2 years ago. Um, and it's interesting not to stray too far down the track here. Even that game with Dallas, they were talking, "Oh, big game. It's a big measuring stick game," and some of the stuff that was coming out of the room. It's interesting how this team has invited that sort of accountability, the sort of realization that yes, it is a big game and not to kind of shy away from it. And I think that just speaks to the maturity of this group as a whole.
Mhm.
Um, so again, I just like to me, there's no team but really, really, really scares me when the Jets are at the top of their game. Now the question is, can they bring that top of the game to the middle of April? And
Correct. That's the
that's
question for everyone.
that's the $1,000,000 question. I think they
Yeah.
can this year, but we thought they could last year, and we thought we were going to give the Avalanche a pretty big scare. Well, that turned out pretty badly, and it probably should have been a sweep, minus game ones. I don't even know what that was. Fire wagon hockey.
Yeah.
Um, in game number one, the Jets were, for all intents and purposes, really not in the series, but I'm willing to give the benefit of the doubt that they've learned lessons, and I think it's going to be a very interesting next couple weeks here for the team.
I think so too. I think that's they got. I think it's. I looked at the schedule. They've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. They're 7-7. So they've got 14. They got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 1, 2, 3, 4. Yeah, 7 more on the road, 7 more at home. So they're split 50-50. And they got sort of a mixed bag of teams that are in playoffs or in playoff contention and ones that aren't. It's a kind of a full range. It's sort of, I bet you half of them are right now in playoff positions and half are like, who is Edmonton, Dallas, Vegas, Los Angeles, that's 4, Washington, New Jersey, 5, 6. Yeah, so that 6 out of the 14 are in playoff contention, and then there's a few that are right on the bubble, right? So it's not like the Jets have the hardest schedule coming down the stretch or the
Mhm.
easiest, right? And half of them are on the road, half are at home. Meh, it's, you know what I mean? It's kind of a mishmash of whatever. I'm so glad that they're trying to rest. I was listening to what's his name? Bruce Boudreau, former coach of the Capitals. He was
Yep.
on TV yesterday, and he was talking about the Jets and talking about his time as a head coach. And he said, to expend all your energy and push your guys to win the President's Trophy and da 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 da. He says, how long you remember that? It's a great thing. Yeah, you could say you did it, but the first game of the playoffs, nobody remembers. And next year, nobody's going to remember. You know what they're going to remember? Who won the Stanley Cup and who
Yeah.
lost in the Stanley Cup. That's there. You'd have to think, who won? Who was that won? Because a lot of times the person that win or the team that wins the President's Trophy, they end up not winning the Stanley Cup. So he just said the most important thing is you don't push your players too hard. Yes, you want to keep winning. And if you keep winning and you happen to win the President's Trophy, great. But don't push Hellebuck to play 99% of the next games just to win the President's Trophy. Like, rest him. rest your team, be smart about the minutes, play 4 lines, right? Which the Jets are doing. I like that last night. Roll the 4 lines. What's wrong? I saw Morgan out there with Iafallo and Tanev with like in the last minute of the game or last minute and a half. Right on. Those guys are great. They're all great defensive players. You're not worried about like back 5 years ago when the Jets put out their 4th lines, like, I don't want those guys out there on at the end of the game when the very best players from the other team are on the ice. We're going to get scored on for sure. But here, Iafallo, Barron, and Tanev, they can play defense. They're fast. They're strong. They can read pucks. They can do just fine against the top line the other team throws out there with a minute and a half left to trying to win or trying to score the tying goal or even trying to hang on there at the end or trying to keep it tied as you go into overtime. So no, I like what the Jets are doing. I just can't define them. I can't. What kind of team are they? I don't know. Maybe it's just they're not any one thing. Maybe it's just they're a little bit of everything.
I think being a little bit of everything is the best because I think the Jets can play it any way you want.
And that may be the realization is that they are that way means that, like you say, they don't fit into any one box, which means depending upon what their opponent wants to do to them, the Jets have been pretty resilient in playing whichever game somebody tries to force on them, right? So it's not a bad angle. And if you have great goaltending and you stay in your system, I know they keep saying that, and it's probably very true. Whether we're up by 2 goals, like at the beginning of this game, they were down 2 goals. You didn't see them panic. They're down 2. Keep doing their Jet hockey. Keep being smart. Keep checking well. Keep putting pressure on the defense. Keep trying to be smart about how you move the puck out of your own end. And eventually, not always, but most times, all the good things will happen as a result. And yeah, that's what happened again last night.
I have an interesting thought. One of the major quote unquote injuries that has happened since we last spoke is the injury to Neil Pionk. Team health lasted all of 1 game. Luke Schenn has moved to play with Dylan Samberg. DeMello and Morrissey are the top pair, and then Colin Miller is with Hayden Fleury on the bottom there.
Yeah.
What have you seen from that new makeshift D through 2 games? Like, I realized yesterday was a bit of an abnormality, but in the last couple of games they've given up 1, 2, and 2 goals defensively. And nothing really in the back half of the hockey game other than that one that was sort of late against Dallas. The Rangers, they surrendered 1 goal, beat the Rangers 2-1, beat Dallas 4-1, and then last night against Seattle, they gave up 2 in the first, but nothing the rest of the way. Have we come, and it's sort of a question that I think you and I can both discuss, have we seen the value of an addition like Luke Schenn? I mean, in every game that he's played since the New Jersey game, he seems to be leveling a player, a big hit. In the Ranger game, I can remember the hit on Kaliev that has knocked him out since. Is there something about the addition of Luke Schenn that has stabilized the defensive core and maybe sort of lessens the blow, if that's a word, for the loss of Neil Pionk, even though it's only been a couple of games?
Yeah. So I just wanted to cover. You're saying that hit on Talia from the Rangers there in the corner by Schenn, he's out as a result of that hit?
Out. Yep. Separated shoulder, apparently.
You know what? I was at that game. That was his first game in at home.
Yep.
In home. And I was just watching you because I don't know if you do this. See, I like to watch the game. I like to watch the play. So the stuff that kind of happens on the fringes, you don't always see, right? If there's whacking or hacking behind the play, unless it's really noticeable, whatever. But I just wanted to watch whenever Luke Schenn was on the ice. I wanted to watch him play. Just isolate on him. What does he do? Do you know in that game, I was watching, all he did was he just finished checks. That's all he did. And that guy is a big cat. He's about 6'4", 235, 240 pounds. He's built, as we would say in German, built like a brick house. And he hit, I remember that corner, that was in the left-hand corner, like when I'm watching, I was at the game with my dad sitting behind the Jet bench about 8 rows up, and it's on the left corner there. And he hit that, and you could see Tav, he got hit and he went down to the ice, and you could see, actually, they still the replay, but even when he went, I could see it, even being as far away as I was like, he went like that.
Yeah.
The wind went completely out of him like a balloon, just. And he got up and he kind of like whatever he was, and it was a clean hit, right? No elbow, nothing. It was just 250 pounds of a guy that knows how to throw his weight, and he puts it into him, and he just drilled him into the boards, and he was vulnerable. And yeah, and that's what Luke Schenn does. And you know, he's not in your first. I know he's playing with Samberg now occasionally, I guess he is, and you know, he's bumped up because Pionk's not there, but he's not, you know, he's not moving the way he used to, right? He's 34, 35 years old. His speed isn't quite there. I think Pionk lends himself to being a little bit faster, and you know, the pace is a little bit better. I think Pionk is a better passer. Schenn's okay, but I think Pionk sees the ice better and he can move the puck up the ice better. But that being said, Schenn on that third pairing, killing penalties, being out there at the end of a game when you're down by or when you're up by a goal and they pull their goalie, having Luke Schenn on your team is going to be very valuable. And having another defenseman down the road in the playoffs, it's a good thing. And he just plays. It's hard to play against. So I don't know how else to describe it. Like, he just hit everybody, and not dirty, like not running guys with elbows and all sorts of chicken wings up like that. A guy went in the corner, he'd finish him. He'd polish him off in the corner, and just, you get hit like that 10, 15 times in a game. It's like, it's not easy to come back from that. And it's just tiring. Right. So yeah, I like the addition. I think he's fit in, and you know what? They don't need him to score, right? They got Josh Morrissey to move the puck on offense. I guess when the second pairing, what did they do last night when they had the second power play unit? Was that quarterbacked by Colin Miller? I think it was, wasn't it?
I think it was. I didn't see much of the game. I was listening on the radio when I got home from work. So.
I think so. And he's good. He's got a good shot. He's fine. He can skate and he can move the puck. That's all good. But having Luke Schenn there, I think it's really great. And having Brandon Tanev, I mean, it just means, look at all the depth you've got. You've got still, when Pionk comes back, you're going to have Fleury and Stanley and Heinola all ready and waiting on the defensive wing. And you're going to have Gustafsson, and when
Tapari.
Who's injured now on the forwards? Who am I forgetting of?
No one.
No? Oh, I thought there was somebody.
Yeah, Kupari had a concussion, but
Kupari.
He's fully healthy now, though.
Oh, but they've just been scratching him for Morgan Barron at center. Eh?
Yep.
I guess they like what Barron's doing, but Barron's been great. I mean, maybe we should throw that out there. Has he not looked great at center ice?
Yeah, we'll talk about that after a second. That was one of my other topics. But yeah, no, I would agree. And that kind of leads me to a follow-up. Is Logan Stanley's time with the Jets done?
Good question. I still think he should be playing. Nope. I still think that he should be playing. And like in my mind, he should be on the third pairing with Luke Schenn when everybody's healthy and everyone's back, in my mind. I don't know if that's going to happen, because once Pionk comes back, I'm assuming Miller is going to go off the ice. You're going to have Pionk with Samberg, and then who are you going to have with Schenn? You probably want a lefty there. So you're either going to have Fleury or you're going to have Stanley.
Yeah.
But in this last game, who was it? It was Schenn and Fleury, or Schenn, sorry, or Fleury and Miller.
It was Fleury and Miller has been for the last 2-3 games. So It's interesting that way.
Luke, I know Stanley gives up a lot of pucks, but he does other things which are very valuable. I just wish he could get his game together. Sometimes he looks really good, and other times everybody's watching him now. When he makes a mistake, it's just so magnified, right? In terms of everybody's, oh, look at Stanley gave up another puck. Not seeing like Josh Morrissey twice yesterday, he gave up the puck in very vulnerable situations. Now Seattle didn't score, but I'm just saying, it's not Logan Stanley's not the only guy on the team that turns over the puck. It's not like there's 5 turnovers a game for the Jets and all 5 are Logan Stanley. I'm sorry. Somebody thinks that you're.
It's interesting on certain sort of chat groups, if you will.
Yeah.
There's the discussion out there about like when are people going to start talking about like the guy like Dylan DeMello, who is prone to mistakes too, and it just seems like Logan Stanley and the whipping boy for some bizarre reason. Seems like the fan base always has a whipping boy for some bizarre reason. That takes the fans anger, but that being that. But yeah, let's talk about this new makeshift fourth line, if you will. It was the starting lineup yesterday, tandem between Barron and Iafallo. I really liked the matchup of that fourth line the last 2-3 games since Tanev has come in. They've kept themselves intact. Gustafson hasn't played since. Kapari hasn't played since. It seems like the injury to Kapari has really opened up this possibility, and the Jets haven't really looked back. To me, like the fourth line is logging 10, 12 minutes a night now, where certain other fourth lines are 7, 8 minutes. I just saw a stat too where Scheifele and his line were like under 20 minutes yesterday or the game before. And the minutes were really sort of spread out. What do you see in this fourth line?
Well, I just like their they could all skate. Like I know people say, "Oh, Tanev, he's got great speed." Yeah, he does. But you know what? Iafallo and Barron can skate too. Barron's a big cat. When you see him lined up, like watching a game, if you see like the bench, if they're all standing at the bench, or like it's hard to tell during warm up because people are moving around and the angle of the camera is not great. But if they happen to pan the Jet bench, which I think they do during the anthems, especially at a home game, just look at how tall Morgan Barron is as compared to everyone else. Like he's as tall as Adam Lowry. I mean, he's not Logan Stanley, but he's got to be 6'4", 6'5". And he may not be 250 pounds, but he's 230, 225. Like he's a big boy, Morgan Barron. And he's strong and he can skate. He's got good wheels. Okay, his stick handling, meh. But look at what he did last night. Set up a beautiful goal to Kyle Connor because their shifts were one was ending and one was starting up. Kyle Connor came on for Iafallo and ended up getting a breakaway goal. So Morgan Barron is I didn't think I wasn't sure that he had center experience, but then they were saying he played in junior. He used to play a little bit. I think when he played in the minors too. So he has some experience. I don't know if he's ever played in the pros, but he does not look out of place. I believe what I saw last time is he's winning between 55 and 60% of his faceoffs that he's taking. And having a big guy in the center position, it's really good because now you have 3 of your 4 centermen are big cats in Scheifele, Lowry, and Barron. Just like, Kapari was a big cat too. But, and then, Nemestikov is the skilled centerman on the second line. That's a little bit smaller, but they play a completely different way than the other 3 lines, which is fine, right? So, I don't know. I like the line. I like Tanev putting the pressure. Him and Iafallo put pressure on the puck. And it's a great line. And it's not a surprise to you that those 3 guys are all part of your penalty killing group, right? Those guys all have minutes killing penalties. So
no, and it's interesting too because I think it's taken a lot of pressure off the third line because I think since the Four Nations break, that third line has regressed a little bit with Niederreiter, Lowry, and Appleton just a little bit. I don't think they've been as dominant as they have in the past, but they're not really a discussion point because now the fourth line is just as effective or perhaps on even terms.
Yeah.
So, and my kind of question is in this whole sort of discussion, just to backtrack, is how well Dylan Samberg has played as of late. He gets the game-winning goal yesterday. He scored a goal a couple of games ago. He had a couple of point shot deflected a few games before that.
Yeah.
Which he's a pending RFA this year. What do you feel is the next contract for Dylan Samberg? Like, what does that look like in your mind? Like, is it possible that, like, for me, I think the Jets should lock him up to an 8-year term ASAP, and just be done with it? Because I think he's the second best defenseman on this team on the left hand side, behind Josh Morrissey. I'm just wondering what you see as his next contract for a possibility.
Well, yeah, it's a good question, right? Because he's only played 200 games. So, he's not anywhere near UFA status. So that's the thing. Sometimes guys, they want to go a little bit further. Like, yeah, okay, you could offer him 8 years, but maybe he says, nah, I don't know if I want 8 years. Maybe I do, but maybe I want 4 years to take me to my UFA status and then see what the market holds then. I don't know. It's such an interesting question because some guys, they want the security, right? They like the team they're with, they like the city, they've made it their home. Like Josh Morrissey, like Mark Scheifele, like Connor Hellebuyck, like they all like it. That's why they extended. But Jacob Trouba, he didn't like it. He didn't want to be here. Pierre-Luc Dubois didn't want to be here. Patrick Laine didn't want to be here. Nick Ehlers, we're not sure. He hasn't said much. He has actually said boo. But I'm just saying, like, that's the thing. I don't know. Is he worth? Like, I don't think he's worth 8 and 8. I just don't see him at being $8 million. Like, he's not in the same realm as Josh Morrissey. But
See, that's the problem, right?
Let me finish. But then the salary cap's going up. So is he worth $6 million a year over 8 years? It's kind of pricey on the front end, but by the back end, 8 years down, $6 million may be like an entry-level contract in 8 years from now if the salary cap. You know what I'm saying? Like that's an annual or an entry-level contract AAV. Who knows? I don't know. Like, so is he? Yes, I'd like to see the Jets sign him. I don't know that he's going to want to go that far down the road. Listen, when he's in the lineup, the Jets are a way better team. Way better. You could see that. I mean, there's everything that shows that because he kills penalties. He's out there in the second pairing. They're a way better team when they have a way better record when he's in the lineup than when he's out of the lineup. Their goals against is better when he's on the ice.
Mm-hmm.
So mm-hmm. I just don't know. I think the Jets would maybe want to sign him. Maybe that's the question is the Jets probably want to sign him long term. I just don't know that he would want to sign long term. So interesting question. No, but it's a good debate though. Yeah.
It's a debate. Rob made the suggestion 8 years, $6.5 million. I think I should subscribe to that. Fury, I just don't know, right? Like offensive points by a defenseman is what drives the market up. I don't know if you can say that Dylan Samberg's offensive potential is there. At the end of the day, I think the Jets get him in at about a 4-year term, and then what the dollar is, we'll wait to see. I also think, though, the Jets have multiple priorities this offseason as far as spending money. Nikolai Ehlers being one of them, Neil Pionk being another, Alex Iafallo being another. I'm just not sure if there's enough money to go around for everybody when it's all said and done. But that's neither here nor there right now. This is a team that's focused on winning the Stanley Cup. And I think if they go deep in the playoffs, I think a lot of Penguins will take care of themselves. For sure.
Yeah.
What do you see from the Winnipeg Jets like going forward? Like obviously you think they're gonna clinch first in the division before long. They're gonna clinch a playoff spot, I think, before long.
Oh yeah.
Officially, even though
The
we've
Jets
known
will
for
make the playoffs. Yeah.
months that they're going to make the playoffs. Really, since the beginning of November, that they were going to make the playoffs. But is it sort of clinch the conference, clinch the division as soon as possible, and then start to get some people some rest for the playoffs?
Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, it's an interesting question. Like that, how do you manage load level? Actually, the one good thing is if you look at the Jets schedule, they have one of the lightest schedules, right? Most teams still have 16 or 17 games left. Jets are
Yep.
one of the few teams that only have 14 left because their schedule is really compressed at the beginning of the year, and especially between the Christmas and the Four Nations break there, right? So
Yep.
it was very compressed. So now, like they've got, like when you look at the games, I don't know, do they play? They play one back-to-back at Chicago and then at home to Edmonton the next night in the second last game of the season, which is kind of stupid. I don't know why. Why couldn't that be on the Monday the 14th? Why does it have to be on Sunday? It's just stupid.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
that being said, the Jets have 2 days between every game, and a lot of times they got 3 days. Actually, how many times do they have it? Once, twice, they have 3 times. They have 3 days in between games. So all that to say, their schedule is not compressed. Most other teams are playing every second night and doing a lot of back-to-backs. The Jets do one back-to-back. Most of the teams I saw are at least 2 or 3 back-to-backs in the last 17 games just to get the schedule compressed in. So
I mean, I look at a schedule like Dallas, like Friday night. They hadn't played since Saturday.
yeah,
Since Sunday. And now they're going every second night with the occasional 3 and 4, basically right till the end of the season. That's another telltale sign to me, Rich, that the Jets are going to win the Central. Because I have a ridiculous time believing that the Dallas Stars are going to win every one of those games in that compressed schedule.
Yeah.
Really, the Jets' undoing in most of their losses has been as a result of that compressed schedule. So it's only going to be a matter of time before the Jets clinch the Central Division, and they say good luck to Colorado and good luck to Dallas in playing each other, and they can start to kind of plan for what the playoffs would look like.
I agree, and it would be really good for the Jets to let me just see. It'd be really good for the Jets to win. I mean, well, they're going to win their division going away. There's I'm saying it now, and you can bank on it. You can mortgage your future house on it. The Jets are winning the Central. Like nobody's catching them right now. They're 11 points ahead of Dallas, and there's no way. Look, Dallas has got 16 games at the Jets have 14. If the Jets go 7-7 and get 14 points, Dallas has to get 25, which means they have to go in their last 16 games. Think about that. They'd have to go 12, 2-2 to get 20. Yeah. It's not going to happen. There's no way in a snowball's chance in Hades that the Stars are going 12-2-2 with that compressed schedule. It's just not going to happen, especially with they're missing Heiskanen and Rupe Hintz just came back in the lineup, and he didn't look great against Colorado. He was okay. I mean, he's a great player, but he'll get his feet back. But so all that to say, Jets win the Central going away. That's not even a question. So do they win the conference? That's an interesting question. They are, they are.
Yeah, they have a bigger lead in the conference than they do in their own division.
Against Vegas, they're ahead by 12 points. Okay, so there it is. The Jets win the division and the conference going away. Nobody catches them. Mark, bet on it. Rick Petty just said it. It's not even possible mathematically. It's not, people say, oh, it's only 10 points. You know how hard it is to make up 10? That's 5 wins in 14 games.
But the other team you're chasing doesn't count.
Correct. Well, they have to get 5.5, 5 wins and 1 tie that you don't get, which
right?
means if you have the Jets gone 500 for any stretch of like 14 games, they've never gone that long,
I
500. So I'm just
mean,
saying
the one part was that stupid road trip where they had 12 games in 12 different cities, lost Dylan Sambert to injury, and somehow lived to tell the tale.
exactly. So they're going to win the division, they're going to win the conference, and then if everything plays out, they're going to play either the winner of Colorado or Dallas. I hope they each beat the tar out of each other in 7 games, and all 7 go to quadruple overtime, and they lose bodies along the way. McKinnon and McCarr get injured. Hintz and Robertson and Heskinen all go down, and then there's just a shell of a team that's meeting the Jets in the second round. And then the Jets are going to have to play probably Edmonton or Vegas in the conference final. And then who's left waiting for them? Washington, Carolina, Florida, Toronto, Tampa, one of those 5 teams. So you know what? This is as good a year as any as the Jets have now. Again, injuries can happen, right? If they lose Scheifele or a Morrissey, that could really hurt them. Like that
Yeah.
really affects them because that's. I just think they have a harder, even though they have a lot of depth through their lineup, they don't have a lot of high end depth. So when they lose their number 1 center, I don't know who would move into that position if Scheifele would get injured. But I don't even want to talk about it. I want to talk. It's like talking about a shutout with 5 minutes left in the game. You don't want to say nothing, right? So, but anyway, the Jets this year they're as good a place as any, and I think the best thing is that they got to keep resting Hellebuck. Hellebuck's going to win the Vezina. I don't care that he wins the number of wins in a season trophy like to beat Martin Brodeur. Who cares? That means nothing. Win the Vezina and be well rested. And now you've got a sharp, fresh Hellebuck starting the playoffs against Calgary or against Vancouver. That's how I see it.
We'd have 15 minutes to do it. I just want to touch on the rest of the NHL quickly.
Sure.
How do you see the Pacific Division shaping up? Dallas, Vegas and Edmonton can't get away from each other. The Oilers have hit the skids and maybe have put their playoff hopes in a little bit of jeopardy. If Vancouver and Calgary could get hot, they could chase the Oilers. The Kings haven't exactly run away with anything. Neither has Vegas. How do you see that whole division shaking down? Plus, with 2 of those teams also in play for the 8th and final playoff spot.
Yeah. I mean, I don't think, I'm just looking here, I don't think St. Louis has a chance to catch Minnesota. Like Minnesota's going to get one of the wild cards. That's just, and they'll probably get the number 1 wild card. So then it's a little match here between 4 teams, basically, that you'd see: St. Louis, Utah, Vancouver, Calgary. Who of those 4 teams is going to, in the next 14, 15 games, going to push, or 15, 16 games, going to be able to push their way through? And the way, or how much, or how hard it is for teams to move, right, in the standings when you've got teams that there are multiple point games. Every game is a multiple point game with, especially when you go into overtime and or in the shootout. So I'm just saying, you could literally have the last week of the season, you could have Vancouver, Calgary, and St. Louis and Utah battling it out for that last spot, which would be something else.
Who do you think it comes down to between those 4 teams?
I don't really like Utah. And you know what? And Vancouver and Calgary, they're not good defensive teams. Yeah, they got wins here and there because they outscore their problems at times. But when they lose big. St. Louis seems to win a lot more closer games. So, and St. Louis has more offense in their team. I'm just looking than Calgary. Calgary has a hard time scoring goals at times.
Is
St. Louis.
St. Louis the bigger threat?
Well, I think if you're asking me, I think St. Louis, in my opinion, has the best chance of those four teams to get. I just think not just because of where they are right now in the standings, but just the type of team they are.
Right.
They're playoff. Like they got guys on that team that drive the bus that are playoff guys. Braden Shen, and well, you pick your and
Robert
pick your player.
Thomas and
Yeah, Thomas and
Cairo.
Kyrou, and then on defense you got that big guy that you were talking the Jets wanted. I don't.
Yeah, but he's out for the season, so that's
Who's that?
Pareto.
Oh,
Pareto, the guy
Parayko's
you're
out.
thinking of.
Okay, Parayko's out. Okay, that impacts them a little bit then. Ooh, okay, but I still think it's St. Louis. I just think Vancouver's got too much, too many things up in the air. Even after they traded to JT Miller, I just think they've struggled for an identity. Quinn Hughes has to play like half a game. He's got to play like 30 minutes a game. He's on the ice all the time. It's just like, because they can't trust anybody else on the ice, I guess. I don't know. And then Calgary has a hard time scoring goals. So does Vancouver. Utah looks great one night. Another night, they just look very young and inexperienced. So
yeah, and then it was one of the nights this week, Rich, where Utah had a game in complete control, and then I think it was Seattle. They were playing team back, and Utah didn't even get anything out of that game. So it's interesting that way. That's just why I think the Jets have a big advantage if they finish first in the division, first in the conference, which I think it didn't happen. It's just a matter of time.
Yeah.
How do you see these shaping up? Like, there's a lot of questions here. I think more so than the West, and I think if I'm being honest, the Eastern playoffs intrigue me more than the Western playoffs. Let's take the Atlantic for example. Florida gave up 4 goals in the back half of the third period, losing 4-2 to the Islanders yesterday. They have 2 more games played than the Leafs in Tampa. The Leafs have hit the skids of late, losers of their last 2 games, one of which to Ottawa, the other of which to Florida. Also lost the game to Tampa in the not too distant future. Also coming out of the Four Nations break, blew a 4-0 lead and barely hung on to play the Carolina Hurricanes. How do you see that Atlantic division shading down between Florida, Tampa, and Toronto? And are we discounting the fact that Ottawa could also finish third in that division? The way those 3 teams are kind of, I don't know, lollygagging, sort of trotting their way here, there, everywhere to the finish line. And to me, it just looks like the Ottawa Senators are the best team out of that 4. The question is, can they win enough to get themselves into the top 3?
Yeah, that's a good question. They got to make up 4 points on the Leafs and the Lightning. They got the same amount of games left. They each have 16 games left.
Yep.
And they're 4 points behind. You're right. They've played really well, and they've made up on it because they've like won how many games in a row, and just
6 games in a row. There's 7-2-1 in their last 10.
Yeah, and that trade for Dylan Cousins has really worked out, even though a lot of people, including some of the players in the team, they didn't think it would, and it's really worked out well. So you think he scored in every game that he's played with Ottawa since the trade. So listen, Ottawa's making the playoffs. I'm looking at it here. I look at their schedule. I look at just the changes that they've made, how they've played the last 3 weeks, 4 weeks, even the last month since the trade deadline. And Ottawa makes the playoffs. I know we've talked about it forever. They were one of my wild card picks this year, and so they were for you. I think they were. And look, now after they didn't seem like they would be there, now they're there. So will they catch Ottawa, or will they catch Tampa Bay or Toronto? Wow, you got to make up 4 points in 16. Yeah, you got to. If Toronto and Tampa go, like they're both 5-4-1 and 6-3-1, Tampa, Toronto over the last 10. So let's say, which is not crazy, they could go 10-6 over this final 16 games. That's 20 points. That leaves Tampa and Toronto each with 101 points, right? If they each go 10 and 6. So that's 101 points. That means Ottawa has to get 24 points just to tie them in their last 16 games.
So 12-4.
Huh?
So 12-4.
That's to tie them, correct?
Yep.
So they'd have to get 2 more wins relative to Toronto and Tampa Bay. Maybe one of them they could see, but it just depends. Like Toronto's been so up and down.
Yep.
Tampa's
well, they played
an
hour against Calgary in what'll be a fairly consequential game on both sides of the bracket.
Yeah. I think, honestly, if you're asking me, I think Ottawa, because I think they're more vulnerable. I think the Leafs are more vulnerable. I think they still haven't figured out what's going on with Austin Matthews. I mean, if he's not driving that bus and he's not scoring, they may make the playoffs, but they're not going anywhere without him. I mean, he's their captain. He's the guy. He's got to score. He's got to drive the bus. And he just looks like he's in a funk, like he's lost. And to me, Tampa Bay has looked very good. Vasilevsky has played unbelievably the last 3 or 4 weeks since the trade deadline and everything's kind of settled. They look like the team that's going to stay in second place. And I think it's going to be, if Ottawa gets third place, it's going to be because they push the Leafs out and the Leafs drop to the number 1 wild card. That's my call.
It's absolutely interesting. The other thing is,
then you got the other 3 teams. You got Montreal, New York, and Columbus, all within a point of each other. I don't know.
And if you extend it even further, Detroit is tied with those teams. So
Detroit. Well, they're tied with the Columbus, right?
Yeah, they're tied with Columbus. So, but the problem is Detroit has 1 more game played than everybody. The Rangers have 2 more games played than everybody.
Yeah. It's going to be like in the West. I agree with you. It's going to be right down to the end. Those, maybe not the 1 wild card, because I think the 1 wild card, like in the West, it'll be Minnesota. Here in the East, it'll be Toronto or Ottawa. They flip-flop. So either one is third place, one is wild card 1 or whatever. But here again, like your point, I agree with you. You got 4 teams: Montreal, Detroit, New York, and Columbus, all fighting for that last wild card spot. It's going to be nuts the last 4 weeks of the season here now, or whatever it is. It's going to be crazy.
Does Montreal get in?
What's that? What are you predicting that the Habs get in?
I'm telling you right now, Montreal gets in, the Rangers are out.
Ooh. But then you're saying that Columbus doesn't get in.
Nope.
And Detroit doesn't. You say the Habs get in. Okay.
They're the hotter team of the 4, and the Rangers have played the most games out of anybody in that group.
Problem is that the Habs are not very good defensively. They're not good on goals for and against. They let in a lot of goals relative to New York and Columbus. Columbus and New York are much better defensive teams than the Habs.
Yeah, I mean, fair enough. -19-0. There's something to be said for that for sure. I think Ottawa's home and cool with this recent run. It's going to be cool. One of my employees is a huge Ottawa Senators fan, so he's just like over the moon right now at how well they're doing. I said I'm hoping for an Ottawa Winnipeg Stanley Cup final, but that's not likely going to happen. But one can dream, right? So it's interesting, right? And I think, Rick, this line, just to kind of put a bow on this before I ask you what the Jets are going to do this week, you are what your record says you are for a reason. These teams are fighting for the wild card because they have been consistently inconsistent all year.
True. That is a very good point. That's why they're there, right? Like, that's why they're in the grinder, whereas teams like Vegas and Winnipeg, they're up there, right? Because they find ways to win even when they're not at their very best. If their goaltender's not really sharp, then the team plays better defensively. If the team is not sharp offensively, then the goaltender saves them on a, you know what I mean? So or the third line saves them when the first line is not driving the bus, or the penalty kill saves them when the power play is not scoring enough. So yeah, to your point, the Jets have had a way more consistent season, which is why they're at the top of the league. I mean,
no, that's fair. Last question. How do you think the Jets do this week? They did a couple games. Starting tomorrow
Yep.
against Vancouver. They go
Yep.
to Edmonton. Then after Edmonton, they play Vancouver that Sunday afternoon.
No, that's the Sabres they play.
Oh, yeah. Sorry, the Sabres.
Right.
Vancouver's a week later.
Right. With a 3-day break in between Thursday and Sunday, which is really nice. There's another
I
break.
like that.
Yep. Get rest. So at Vancouver, at Edmonton, home to Buffalo. You know, they should win all three of these games. I mean, for sure, Vancouver just looked terrible yesterday against Utah. I mean, just they look
Yep.
terrible. And Quinn Hughes played I think it played 31 minutes. I mean, that's crazy.
Yeah. Even with batting up on Vancouver, that game against Calgary, they should not have won that game.
Oh.
That was Calgary throwing that game away on Wednesday night.
I know. It was terrible. So they got Vancouver, at Edmonton, and then home with the Sabres. Sabres have looked terrible lately too. And so, I don't know. For me, they should go 2-1, 2-0-1. They have to. The only thing I think is maybe at Edmonton, you go into Edmonton. It just depends on the Oilers. Sometimes they look great. They seem to really get geared up and play well against the Jets. And other times, the Jets are kind of okay against them. So it just all depends on that night. So I would say 2-1 or 2-0-1. Maybe they go to overtime with the Oilers, and then McDavid scores in overtime. So
I'm telling you right now, Rich, 2-1. The Jets' bottom part of the lineup shuts down McDavid and Draisaitl. Depth scoring wins them a game.
Okay, and who do they lose to in overtime?
They lose to Buffalo, home after a road trip.
But in overtime.
In overtime. Yeah, overtime.
So they win 2 on the road and come home and lose in overtime. Okay, yeah. Okay, 2-1. I think
great. This is going to happen. You're not going to have your A team for every game.
I know. But now since Comrie played last night, for sure.
He's won 4 straight or 4 out of 5. So
yeah, Hellebuyck is for sure going to play Vancouver and Edmonton for sure. Then they got 3 days off. Then he comes back and plays, and then they play the Sabres and then Washington. Well, for sure he's going to play at home against Washington. That'll be no brainer. And then Wednesday, Friday, they got 3 days off. They play Jersey and then Vancouver on Sunday. Maybe he plays the next 5, and then the Comrie plays against Vancouver. Or Comrie plays against the New Jersey. That's a possibility. But I think for sure, or maybe he plays the next 2, and then they come home for the Sabres. They put Comrie in the net against the Sabres, and then he plays 3 in a row, home against Washington, New Jersey, and Vancouver. That's a possibility too.
There's lots of options when you have the flexibility that they have.
Yep.
The Jets, I'll say this just on the way out, the Jets have won the right to be flexible with their goaltending going forward. And 100%. Just about every other lineup decision.
Yep.
Anyway, Rich, have a good week. We'll see you on next Monday. We are on Mondays the rest of the way now. Unless I picked up some other contract that I'm unaware of right now. But the countdown to the playoffs is near. A month and 2 days away from starting. Saturday, April 19th will be the opening day of the Stanley Cup playoffs. For Rich Petty, Michael Dell saying have a great week. Go Jets, go. And good night from Winnipeg. We'll talk next week. Bye for now.